Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Think we should go drown our sorrows in some turkey.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, November 27th, 2024, or if you're on the East Coast, I guess it's already Thanksgiving Day. Happy Thanksgiving. Welcome into this live postcast reaction episode of the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shaden. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $150 back in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in to everybody, all the everydayers, the Locked On Tar Heels insiders, and our great Locked On Tar Heels Discord family. We're so glad you're here. Thanks for staying up with me because we got a therapy session to get to. We are down and out right now, and we got to talk about it. Carolina loses the third place game of the Maui Invitational 94-91 in overtime. Tar Heels are now 4-3 on the season. Losses at Kansas, to Auburn, and then now to Michigan State. Tar Heels leave Maui 1-2. They're 2-2 overall on this Hawaii trip. Poor Elliot Cadeau, man, feel miserable for him. Misses a wide open layup near the end of regulation. Would have given Carolina a lead, but that led to Seth Trimble getting a game-tying three with just over 5 seconds left. And thankfully, Carolina puts a man on the ball and is able to get to overtime where things just didn't work out in the end. Here's how we do these live post-game reaction shows. If you're new to Locked On Tar Heels, first off, welcome in. Thanks for staying up with us on Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving Eve, depending on what time zone you're in. I've got several things I want to get to and talk about. We'll take a break or two. We'll get to your questions and comments. So if you're not already in the live chat, dropping in your observations, your questions, things you want me to hit on, make sure to do that. And then when we're done with this, I'll actually record tomorrow's full show. So you'll get this reaction and you'll get a show for tomorrow. And then you'll get a show on Friday with me and Coach Rob unpacking Maui Invitational, everything we learned from that. So I know it's Thanksgiving, but man, we're coming to you with as much content as we can. Here's where we're going to start. Once again, the North Carolina Tar Heels dig themselves a massive, massive hole. They have played 7 games this season, and they have gotten into a double-digit deficit in 4 of those 7 games. Against Kansas, 20-point deficit, as much as a 20-point deficit in the first half. Dayton, 18. Auburn, 15. And tonight against Michigan State, 14. Somebody joked, I tweeted that out, and somebody joked, at least the number's going down. And hey, like, sure, but man, Carolina has played 7 games, and in 4 of them, they've been down double digits in the first half. That's just simply and frankly not going to do it. That's not going to be good enough. And the only games they haven't been down double digits in the first half, Elon, American, and Hawaii. The 3 non-high major opponents they've played, but the 3 high major opponents plus an A10 opponent in Dayton, who's good enough to be a high major opponent in basketball, they've been down double-digit points. Yes, great resilience from the Tar Heels. They have fought in each one of those games, right? Like gotten after it. Yes, and we can and should celebrate that, but I don't know what you got to do. Like, just, hey guys, guess what? The first half isn't going to happen tonight. We're just going to play 2 second halves. Go out there and do it. Like, I don't know what you got to do to fire these guys up, but man, it's got to be something. Got to be something. Pat Kilby said on our show today, like, change the starting lineup. Just anything to make a difference. Even if you don't plan to stick with a different starting lineup, do something to jostle this thing up. In the same way when you go to the gym, you don't do arms every day because then your muscles get tired of the same thing. You got to do something new, and that's where Carolina is at right now, man. They just cannot continue to keep digging these holes. Sure, it worked against Dayton, but that's the only game you win at Maui, and you had to dig yourselves out of a 21-point deficit. That's not going to cut it. Another issue for the Tar Heels, especially in this game, was defense, man. And, it's funny as you look at KenPom. I wonder if KenPom's updated. We're going to look at this in real time. Ooh, Carolina has fallen. Yeah, it's KenPom's updated. The Tar Heels have fallen to 21st at KenPom. Offense, still elite, ranked 7th in offensive efficiency, but the Tar Heels have fallen to 63rd in defensive efficiency. That is simply just not going to cut it. And in this game in particular, it felt like North Carolina was able to score, like second half. Tar Heels are able to score and then just can't stop anybody. And in this day and age of spread offense, you have to be able to get in front of your guy and make a stop. We know that was one of Carolina's big calling cards and DNA pieces last year, was this defense that got it figured out. At this point in the season last year, 7 games in, they weren't there yet. It wasn't till I think the Oklahoma game when it was like, oh, this team has that defense going. They've got that figured out. Carolina, sure, they don't have the rim protection, but they've got some very athletic and players and some very strong defensive-minded players like Seth Trimble, like Drake Powell, like Elliot Cadeau, who's really, really stepped up defensively this year. But the second half of this game, North Carolina was incapable of stopping Michigan State's drives and getting in front of them, and the Sparties scored at will. And sure, some of it was actually getting the ball into the paint and the issues that we've identified with Carolina's lack of landing who they wanted in the portal and getting some of that. But you've got to find ways to do it. I talked about today, mix in some different defenses, throw some zone, do something to get opposition guessing. I knew the points in the paint had shifted through this game, and I hadn't had a chance to look it up yet, but thankfully Tar Heel Illustrated tweeted it out. Listen to this. Points in the paint with 11:37 left in regulation was Michigan State 26, 28, North Carolina 26. Very, very close. At the end of the game, Carolina had only scored 4 more points in the paint. Michigan State was up to 50. So they got 22 more points in the paint, meaning the final 11:37 of regulation and the 5 minutes of overtime, Michigan State outscored Carolina 22-4 on points in the paint. And that's just simply not going to cut it. Because, yes, while Carolina, again, much to their credit, was able to fight and claw and get their way back in at the end of this thing, throughout the second half, it felt like Carolina hit panic mode a little bit. And there were times where there was some great ball movement. Let's not miss those. But the majority of the time, it felt like Carolina was just like, I got to go one-on-one. Like RJ was just getting killed at the rim. And I don't mean that like refs missing calls. There was some interesting refereeing. We'll definitely get to that in a little bit. But it's just like, he was forcing and it wasn't working. Same with Seth and Elliot, right? They're getting there, but there's just times when they're not getting home. And that is going to be a bugaboo for them. So Carolina's defense was not really up to it tonight. Look, I want to get to a very happy thing before we take our first break. And that was the freshmen, man. But James Brown didn't get into this game, but the 2 main freshmen, Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, were absolute dudes in this game. The 2 of them, Drake Powell, 18 points, Ian Jackson, 14 points. That's a combined 32 points, and Carolina scored 91. So that's more than a third of Carolina's output tonight, right? Yeah, absolutely, because that would have been 96 if you multiply that by 3. So those 2 combined to score more than a third of North Carolina's points in this game. They were combined 6 of 10 from 3. Drake was 4 of 6 from 3. What else did they get? I'm just looking at the rest of their stat line. 4 rebounds for Ian, just 1 for Drake. Need more rebounds from Drake. 1 assist combined between them. 1 block for Drake, and just 1 turnover each. So that's not bad. But really the scoring really picked Carolina up at a time when they were struggling. That first half, Ian and Drake were responsible for, I think it was 12 straight Carolina points at one point, and it was just like really good thing. Because now if you can take that back to the mainland where the rest of us are and bring back Seth and Elliot and RJ, maybe figure something out with some of the bigs and get things going, you could have a stew Cook that bad boy up. I got food on the brain apparently with Thanksgiving come tomorrow. But seriously, really, really good to have both these guys have a breakout game in the same game at Maui. Now it's time to come home because Carolina is going to need them next Wednesday against Alabama in the ACC SEC Challenge. And that's the other nice thing is you've now got a week to look at the tape, figure out what on earth is happening, and get some things fixed and squared away before you carry on. All right, gang, lots more to say. We want to continue to have some conversations here like legitimately, is something wrong with RJ right now? We want to talk about that technical on Coach Davis and the horrible call that was associated with that. All that and the lineup change or the starting lineup not changing, man. Lots more to get to. Plus your questions. I see lots of great comments coming into the chat, and we'll hit those all in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at FanDuel, get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers, you can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So maybe you get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can go check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. Obviously, the Carolina-Alabama line for next Wednesday is not out yet, but you know what? Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, or today's Thanksgiving as you're listening to or watching this later on. And man, there's 3 super fun NFL games today. Maybe go check those lines out and get in on that action. You'll get started if you hop on to FanDuel.com with $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Never waste a hunch and go make every moment count with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, gang, we are going to go ahead and bring in the box score as we continue going with this thing. And I only pulled up the Carolina side of it. I didn't do the split box. If you want that, certainly you could obviously go check it out. But I just wanted you to be able to see what the Tar Heels did as we continue to have our conversations today. All right, here's the next topic I want to get to tonight as we unpack this game. I am legitimately starting to wonder now, and I know a lot of people have been on this bandwagon, and I've been resistant to it just to say, man, hang on, hold on. Is there legitimately something wrong with RJ, or is he just in and out of a slump as athletes do? That's what I'm really weighing right now because I don't know. You wonder if he's more banged up than he's letting on. I mean, you think all the way back to the fall that he took in the blue-white scrimmage ahead of the Memphis game. Remember, he didn't even play the Memphis game because of that. And then he's been banged up other times this year, you know, like he got knocked down quite a bit in this game against Michigan State. I don't mean any cheap shots or anything like that. I thought Michigan State was just a good, tough, physical team. Even like I thought Auburn, all 3 of these teams Carolina played were physical. Honestly, Dayton was a very physical team. Obviously, Auburn was in Michigan State. I thought Auburn was the one that took it overboard at times. Like, that was too much. I thought Michigan State just played tough, right? Anyway, so that could be a thing. It could be that RJ is just banged up. And sure, maybe. But also, it could just be that he's struggling and hasn't found it yet in this game. Yes, 16 points. But 6 of 18 from the field, that's just 33%. 2 of 6 from 3, that's 33%. That means his average is going to go up, creeping closer to 30%. 2 of 3 from the free throw line. But like hear me say this. While RJ has been inefficient at scoring, he continued that 30-point game, good grief. Listen to what he did do in this game, though. 3 rebounds, 7 assists, and just 1 turnover. That's the thing about the savviness of this veteran is even though he's scoring or struggling to score, he's doing other things to help his team. Because the other thing I didn't say, he also had 3 steals against Michigan State tonight. So RJ chipping in other ways, but I mean, right, you're with me. Sooner than later, the shooting has to start coming unless there's something physically wrong with him. He is too good a shooter to stay in a slump for too long, right? Like a baseball coach. You don't pull out your best player or one of your 2 best players because he's in a hitting slump. You let him work through it. Maybe you move him down in the batting order a little bit short, but you don't bench him and pull him. So that is the thing. All right, let's talk about the technical foul because Elliot Cadeau just a minute or two into the game, was whistled for an offensive foul for a push-off. I thought it was there. There was a little acting help from the Michigan State defender. I forget who it was, whether it was Fears or Akins or Holloway. I can't remember. Holloman, not Holloway, excuse me. But I understand why they called that. And then Elliott ends up committing a second foul in the first half, which, if I remember correctly, is the third time in the last 4 games where he's had 2 fouls in the first half. So that's going to be needed cleaned up. But then we get into the second half. North Carolina is making this push. They're scoring. They're getting back in this game. And you're like, okay, here comes this second half magic again. Here comes the run. And Carolina has it all the way down and gets a lead. In fact, it's 58-57. And then Michigan State's going to try to, that thing where you dribble across half court, then call the timeout in front of your bench, get the timeout, and you get the ball right back there. Michigan State is going to do that. Elliott just kind of gets in the way a little bit, shuffles his feet, is in position, and does it. The Michigan State ball handler, I forget who it was, gives Elliott a little bit of a push off. I didn't think it was anything major, but then winds up falling after he does that because Elliott does a phenomenal job of moving his feet and staying in legal guarding position. The referee is out of position behind the play, and he calls a foul on Elliott because the Michigan State player fell. He can't see the arm that Elliott receives. That's on the official for being out of position. Understandably, Elliott is like, what on earth did I do? Right? Like, that's another thing. Elliott, I think at times gets a little too emotional with it. I appreciate his intensity, but whatever. That's Coach Hubert Davis's job to take care of that. Coach Davis goes apoplectic on the sidelines and is teed up by a different referee, not the one that called the foul. So Michigan State gets some free throws. I think makes them both, makes it a 59-58 lead. And that was that. And they then go on this 8-0 run after that. And Carolina, I don't think ever took the lead again in regulation. Like, I don't think they were back in it tied until the Seth Trimble 3 at the very end. Is that right? Somebody, you guys can fact check me. You're paying attention to this. But it's like, bro, if you're going to call that foul out of position, you need to huddle up. Like, because sure, there was a call to either a no call there because they're just taking a timeout, which you see happen all the time, right? Like, the defender often just stays in front, moves his feet, and gets back, and then they call a timeout and we move on, even if there's a little bit of contact. Or you call the foul on Michigan State because you called the same thing on Elliott earlier in the game. That is simply unacceptable. And frankly, a lot of times the technical inspires your team and it gets going. Carolina lost their momentum and then things were gone. That is not okay. And it's got to be better, and I'm not going to blame Hubert Davis there. I think I would have, been very, very upset at that situation as well, but it is what it is. And again, I know I said this as we were introing the show, you just got to feel absolutely gutted for Elliott, who had for the struggles of the first half. Elliott, this team is not in the game without him. Had multiple great plays, a big time 3, a great and 1, had that insane steal right at half court, and was just getting to the lane and to the bucket kind of at will, including that last possession where Carolina had gone on like a 6-0 run towards the end of regulation. Carolina gets a stop, gets the ball back with 34 seconds to go, down 1. Elliott crosses over, gets to the rim on the left side. I was on him all last year. Elliott, you got to use your left hand on the left side of the rim. And he did that. I want to give him all the credit in the world for working hard on that. Thank you. How does a player get that wide open in that situation? I was appalled. I couldn't, if I was Tom Izzo, I would have been losing my mind right there. And Elliott just kind of gives it the wrong angle off the glass. It's a little too far out. And so instead of dropping in, it drops, hits the rim, and just rolls off the front. And you feel absolutely terrible for him. Michigan State gets a couple free throws. Carolina's got 5 I guess a little more than 5 seconds left, 13 something seconds left. Seth Trimble hits this like fading to the right three to tie it up. The fact that he's taking that shot, I love it, man. That like Seth Trimble is a different player from a psyche standpoint, and you love it. I know as much as I do. And then Carolina able to get it to overtime, and the Tar Heels got a lead in overtime, and then just kept not being able to finish, kept settling for threes again, and that is what it is. A couple other things here before we go to looking at your comments, which, good grief, it's after midnight on the East Coast. It's actually closer to 1 because it's almost midnight for me in Central Time. And there are so many comments. I'm excited to dig into that and see what you all have. I was shocked. I'm trying to decide what word I want to use there, but not surprised that there was no starting lineup change. I think the reason maybe I thought there might have been was because Coach Davis went with Van Allen Lubin over Jalen Washington to start the second half last night against Auburn. And there was no change. It was 3G and the Jalen's to start this game. By the way, if you're not with us, usually 3G is just how I refer to the 3-guard starting lineup of Elliott, RJ, and Seth. And, I know there was a lot of clamoring not only for Jalen Washington, for Van Allen Lubin instead of Jalen Washington, but also for Drake Powell instead of Jalen Withers. And so I'm not shocked, I'm not surprised that Coach Davis didn't make this change, but I was hopeful. I was like, yeah, do it. Why not? Now, I also wonder if they say we wanted to continue to get a sample size with these starting 5. We're going to go back, talk as coaches, look at the tape, and decide if we do now want to make some sort of change, whether it's changing the starting lineup or just getting more minutes for Drake and for Van Allen Lubin, because Jalen Washington has not shown an ability to be strong enough. Time in and time out. Yes, he did much better rebounding, had 7 rebounds total in this game, but 0 points for Jalen Washington, only 1 field goal attempt, a turnover, did have 2 blocks, but only played 13 minutes in a game that had 45 minutes. This game went to overtime. And if I'm not mistaken, let me look at the second half. Yes, played just 3 minutes of the second half in totality to Jalen Washington. And so, I mean, that's tough. That's very tough. And then you've got other guys who played a ton. But something I appreciate that Coach Davis did is recognize, man, we're on our 3rd game in 3 days. We're going to overtime and found some minutes for his guys. Like nobody I was thinking I was going to look at the box score and see 45 plus, and I didn't. RJ played 37, Seth played 37, and that was the most on the team. So that was encouraging. But that said, that also reminds me that certainly fatigue is playing a factor for these Carolina Tar Heels. Michigan State has been using their bench a lot more this season than Carolina has, including in Maui. And I think that plays a factor in a game like this. And so you just got to look at it and recognize that is what it is. All right. Obviously, there is certainly more to talk about, and I will do that and unpack that on tomorrow's full show. But what we got to do right now is I see there are tons of comments and questions coming in. I want to hit those, see what you all have to say as we carry on with our show. All right. What's up, everybody? Good to be here. Thanks for all your comments coming in. And the first one I want to start with is Derek. Oh, man, Derek, I know you told me the other day how to pronounce your last name. I want to say it's Tyson. I know it's not Thiessen. Dang it. That's going to bother me because I always like to get people's names correct. Derek, I apologize that it's not coming to me in real time here. So many missed layups. Folks, let me tell you what the layups were. 11 of 28 for North Carolina on layups, y'all. And that was that's only slightly worse than it was against Auburn. Carolina is not finishing their layups. That's abysmal. 11 of 28. Eesh. That's not going to cut it. Got to be able to finish more of these layups, Derek. So thank you for that very quick observation there. Man, Tyson. Yes, I see you said it down there at the very bottom. Derek Tyson. That's in my head now. Cade Tyson and Derek Tyson played about the same amount of minutes for the Tar Heels tonight. Yikes. That's so mean. I'm sorry. Good grief. Matthew 624 says Drake Powell is our guy moving forward. Look, Matthew, I'm to the point where I'm with you. Like, what did Jay Witt do in this game at the 4? 8 points, 4 rebounds, a turnover, No block steals or assists. Um, what's interesting is that really Carolina went pretty small for a lot of the back part of this game with 3G, Drake Powell, and moved Jay Witt to the 5, and that's how they rocked. I don't know if that's what coach is going to continue to do, but I felt like that was, I mean, Drake played 33 minutes of this game. Jalen played 33 minutes of this game. That's wild. Van Allen Lubin played 12. I would have liked to have seen more from him. Cade played 2. Ty Claude played 3. I mean, heck, if some of these other guys can't be strong, at least Ty Claude could be strong, let's see. Anyway, that's certainly a thing there. So, Matthew, I'm with you there, that I think it might be time to just try Drake in the starting lineup. And maybe it's a thing where you want to see him get some opportunities to witness the game, see it start unfolding, and then see what happens from there and go on. But I'm with you. I think it's worth giving it at least a shot. Also, I like your screen name there, little Matthew 624. No one can serve two masters. I'm curious what you're right. That's Matthew 624. I think so. Anyway, love it. Let's keep going. Blanton, what's up? Blanton's been in the chat a lot lately. Blanton Stamey says, unfortunately, I have a bad feeling of how we stack up against larger teams. I knew we were small, and some of that is by design, but yikes. Yes, I'm with you. The thing is, if you're going to play small, you got to play different, right? Like, I feel like I've been hammering that a lot lately. And it's fine. And I know these guys, compared to me as a 5'11" guy, like 6'10" is massive, 6'9" is massive. But it's not just about the height, it's about the strength. And it doesn't seem like Carolina's interior strength is strong enough. I think we've seen that some with Van Allen Lubin. I think Ty Claude has some of that strength. But it feels like we're not utilizing that as well. And so what do you got to do? You got to figure out other ways to do it. And that's what Carolina is going to have to lean on, because they're going to continue to face bigger players. I mean, good grief. Duke is massive. And I know we're not there yet, but I'm just thinking ahead a little bit. Those guys are monsters. And so the size is a concern. So that's where we're at, and that's what we're going to have to do. A lot of people worried about this year. And I'll say this, like, for example, Brooklyn Maine 17 says 2022-23 all over again. Just get ready for it. Another poop job by Hubert. I'm poop emoji job, I guess it technically is. I'm not like to that point yet, because let's contextualize the losses. A loss at Kansas, who's either number 1 or 2 in the country. I mean, they are number 1 in the country. I just mean playing as either the first or second best team in the country right now. A game that it's close to winning. Yes, another game you were down by double digits in the first half, but this close to winning. A game against the other team that's one of the top 2 teams in the country right now last night in Auburn. A team that is just all due respect to Kansas, I think Auburn is playing like the best team in the country right now. In fact, on my ballot next week, I'm going to have them number 1. And Carolina had their chances with them. Yes, they end up losing by double-digit points, but they fought back and did enough to be there. You drop this game to Michigan State tonight. It's the third night in a row after a very physical game yesterday. I think fatigue plays a role. I think Carolina had chances to win this game and maybe should have, you would say. And so I'm not even close to sky is falling territory yet. My eyebrows are raised. I've got some concern. And I hope I'm not just explaining away those losses. But I think, if we were playing the schedule that some other teams are playing, we'd be 7-0 right now. And there's a world in which I would say I would rather be 4-3 against the schedule we've played than 7-0 playing teams ranked outside the top 200 like you see some other teams doing. Now, that doesn't mean I'm satisfied, and that doesn't mean that it's like, oh, yay, losses. It just means you get to learn more from these types of games. So Carolina's got to take it, though, because it's not like all of a sudden you turn around and you've got, whomever Tech next week. You got Alabama in your next game. And then you've still got Florida ahead. You've still got UCLA ahead. You've still got to host Georgia Tech to kick off ACC play coming up. So, it doesn't get any easier. But I'm just saying, I'm not sky is falling territory yet. But there are things that have to change. That's where I am at. Got to defend, got to figure out how to do all of those kind of things. And so that's a thing that definitely is going to have to be figured out. Okay, Michigan State. It's funny. I saw somebody talking about their 3-point shooting. I can't see who it was there. Oh, David Klein says team drops threes on us at will and layup at will. Man, it felt in the first half like they were just raining threes because that Holloman kid was hitting everything. And I'm like, this team is one of the 5 worst 3-point shooting teams in the nation. They're shooting 22%. That's horrible. Why is this happening? But it all evened out in the end. They wound up 4 of 16 from 3, so they didn't do anything late. But David, I was feeling that for a long time with you there. Man, look, guys, I know there's a ton more to look at. I'm sure there's a lot more great questions. If you didn't get your question answered and you'd like to talk more about it, tweet at me, hop into the Locked On Discord and send it because I'd love to get to more of the questions, but it's very late. I've still got to record 2 more shows. Today's actual Locked On Tar Heels show and today's actual Locked On College basketball show because all the crazy action that happened on Thanksgiving Eve. And so I want to thank everybody so much for joining me late. I know it's super late and I know you need to get some rest so you can get up and see the parade in the morning like I'm going to do with my family. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Again, there will be a show today on Thanksgiving Day and there will be a show on Friday. I'm not abandoning you. I need to help you find things to listen to when you need to sneak away to the bathroom and plug an AirPod in this weekend. So there you go. Folks, thank you so much. Even on a rough day, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Subscribe to the show if you haven't. Join Locked On Tar Heels Discord. Join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders. Great ways to plug in and be a big part of this show. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.